Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start today's story with a woman who thought armed bodyguards would be her golden ticket past mall security. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. She had guards, attitude, and entitlement, but the mall manager had a spine. So this happened yesterday, and I'm still trying to process the sheer audacity of it all while also smug at the result. It's Ramadan, and like most malls here, they open at 3 p.m. on weekdays and stay open until 3 a.m. Plenty of time for everyone to shop, eat, and do whatever they need. But apparently that wasn't good enough for one ultra-entitled Karen who thought she was above the rules. I got to the mall around 2:30 p.m. to grab a good parking spot before the pre-iftar rush to catch some shopping for my wife. A few other cars had already started forming a queue outside the parking entrance, all of us patiently waiting for security to open the gates at 3 p.m. sharp. Everything was normal until Her Royal Highness Karen rolled up in her big black pickup truck with 2 private security guards in tow. She pulls up right next to the security gate, completely ignoring the queue, rolls down her window, and tells the mall security, "Open the gate now, I have things to do." The guard politely tells her that the mall isn't open yet and that she needs to queue like everyone else, but of course Karen doesn't take no for an answer. "Karen, do you know who I am? Do you see my guards? I don't wait in lines." She then literally waves at her guards who step out with their guns like they're about to escort her to the throne room, and they start demanding that security let her through. The mall security guys, to their credit, stood their ground. "Security, ma'am, no one enters before 3 p.m. Please queue like everyone else." Karen scoffs and pulls out her phone to record, demanding to speak to the manager. At this point, the rest of us in line are just watching in anger and disbelief, further amplified due to lack of energy and sheer heat. A few minutes later, the mall manager shows up, looking visibly annoyed. He walks right up to Karen's car and, in the most CEO voice imaginable, tells her, "Ma'am, your guards do not dictate mall policy. If you want to enter, you wait like everyone else. Now take your guards and move to the back of the line." "Karen, this is unacceptable. I'll be calling my husband and reporting you." "Manager, you can report me after you move your car." Absolute legend. The best part, Karen actually shut up and sulked off to the back of the line, her guards looking completely useless. Moral of the story, even if you bring your own goons, mall security still doesn't care. Don't be like Karen. Have respect for people. If you're actually rich, the luxury stores know you're coming because they book private time for you to shop while the store's closed or close the store for you. So many examples of times people try to flex that they're rich and important, yet their behavior exposes them and shows they're not actually rich or important. And our second story. I got woken up early for work for that? This happened a few weeks ago, but the events are still a little fresh and raw in my mind. I work in quite a smallish store in the UK that gets a lot of traffic for mainly local residents. Being a key holder, I'm on the list of people to call when the alarm goes off. Normally, I miss most calls that come through to my phone due to some shady black spots where I live. But lo and behold, I get a call at around 4:25 a.m. that my store's alarm is going off. They need a person there to ensure that there's nothing wrong. So, drag myself out of bed, throw on my work uniform, and I'm out the door in under 5 minutes. Whilst I'm on the way there, I'm on the phone to my girlfriend who's kind of worried with me. We're both pondering what it can be, and of course, you're always thinking the worst in your mind. Someone's broken in to steal something, and you're just trying to get there fast. I make it there after around 15 minutes of speed walking and have a look around from outside first. Nobody's around. There's no signs that show anyone's forced their way inside. Then I make my way in, phoning the security company to be my second pair of eyes in the roof. I make it in and have a sweep around, making sure everything valuable is where it should be. Then I see the culprit. A bag of cheese balls just laying on the floor. I give my findings to the person over the phone with me, and he promptly closes the call out. I then just decide to stay. Talk over the phone with my girlfriend off clock with some tea before the start of my actual shift. I later showed the camera footage to one of my coworkers on site. When it fell off the shelf and woke up the store's lights and set the alarm off, we both started laughing. You should have someone ask the alarm company if they can set it up so that 2 motion detectors need to go off before an alarm is triggered. And our next story. Karen drove through the exit of our drive-thru, then refused to move. Back in the day, I managed a wildly popular coffee shop in a medium-sized coastal town. We weren't a chain, just a fiercely loved local joint known for strong espresso, killer pastries, and friendly faces. Thanks to our prime location and cozy vibe, we were also a regular stop for the local police force. They'd come in for coffee, chat with the staff, and just hang out when they had downtime. It made for a safe, welcoming atmosphere, until the occasional entitled customer came along to test everyone's patience. Now, this particular day started off pretty normal. It was a late morning rush. The drive-thru was busy but flowing smoothly, and my front counter staff were holding down the fort. I was finishing up an inventory check when one of my cashiers frantically called for me over the headset. "There's a situation at the window," she said, sounding more than a little panicked. "Someone drove in the wrong way. Like, completely the wrong way." I stepped out onto the floor and looked outside. Sure enough, a large, shiny SUV, one of those overly polished monsters with blackout windows and out-of-state plates, had nosed its way into the drive-thru from the exit. The drive-thru was a tight one-lane loop with a clear directional arrow and 2 large do not enter signs. You'd have to try to miss them. To make matters worse, there were already several cars in the drive-thru the correct way. They had placed their orders and were lined up waiting to pull up to the pickup window, except now they couldn't because the SUV was blocking the entire lane. I walked over to the window just as the passenger rolled hers down. A woman with a tight ponytail and giant sunglasses barked out her drink order like nothing was wrong. I blinked, stunned for half a second, then composed myself. "Ma'am," I said as calmly as possible, "you've entered the drive-thru the wrong way, and you've also cut in front of several cars that were already in line." Her response? "Well, we're here now, so just take our order. We'll back out when we get our drinks." She said it like that was the most reasonable request in the world. "No, sorry, I can't do that," I replied. "You need to either back out now and enter properly or come inside to place your order." Instant attitude. She crossed her arms and looked at the driver, her husband, I assumed, who just shrugged like this wasn't his problem. She snapped back, "We're not moving. Take our order. This is ridiculous." At that point, one of the drivers stuck in line behind them honked in frustration. Another rolled down their window and yelled, "You're facing the wrong direction, genius!" The woman sneered but stayed put. I sighed and said, "All right, just give me a moment," and walked away from the window. Now here's where the story takes a satisfying turn. Seated at a corner table inside the cafe, enjoying their coffee and cinnamon rolls, were 4 uniformed police officers. They'd already glanced up from their table, sensing something was going on. I gave them the briefest rundown. "There's an SUV in the drive-thru, came in from the wrong direction, refusing to leave, blocking the whole lane, refusing service." One officer stood up immediately and grinned. "Easiest shift we've had all week." The 4 of them casually strolled outside toward the SUV. I stayed inside and watched through the front window as the cops approached. I couldn't hear what was said, but the entitled woman's expression went from smug to stunned in under 10 seconds. Turns out the situation went from bad to worse for them. Not only had they violated basic traffic rules and refused to move when asked, but when the officer ran the driver's license, it turned out to be expired. The couple tried to argue, of course, but the officers were calm, professional, and absolutely not having it. One of them later told me it was the easiest ticket I've written all month. The SUV ended up backing out of the drive-thru, slowly, awkwardly, with a woman glaring through her oversized sunglasses like we had personally ruined her weekend. They drove off without their overpriced drinks and a little poorer thanks to a nice stack of fines. The best part? The officers walked back in, calm as ever, and I handed them fresh coffee on the house. "Refills for heroes," I joked. We all had a laugh, and the atmosphere in the shop lightened instantly. That day, my faith in karma and traffic enforcement was fully restored. Occasionally, managing a coffee shop could feel like babysitting grown toddlers. But on days like that, it was downright satisfying. And our last story. Karen tried to have me arrested on my own land. I live in a small town with a beautiful house overlooking the river. It's technically across the street from the riverbank, but I own the strip of land that fronts the water, about 60 feet wide with a few trees, a stone bench, and a small fire pit. I've put up multiple no trespassing signs to keep it clear. In the summer, the river gets flooded with people tubing, kayaking, and unfortunately trespassing. Most folks are fine once I let them know it's private property. They apologize and move on. But some are built different. So earlier this week, I glanced out the window around 12:45 p.m. and saw a woman and her kid walking right onto my property like they owned the place. They had towels, a floaty, and a little cooler, just casually stepping around two large no trespassing signs like they were invisible. Thinking maybe they didn't see the signs, I walked down to speak with them. "Hi there," I said politely. "Sorry, but this is private property. Could I ask you to find another spot to swim?" The woman, mid-30s, oversized sunglasses, attitude cranked to 11, turned to me and barked, "What? No, we got here first." I blinked. That's not really the point." "We're not hurting anything," she snapped. "Just leave us alone." "This is private land," I repeated. "I'm asking you to leave." She rolled her eyes and muttered, "Yeah, I know." Then, unbelievably, she pointed at the sign next to her. I saw it. "Then you know you shouldn't be here?" She huffed like I was the unreasonable one. "It's fine, nobody cares. Besides," she said, gesturing broadly, "that's my house, isn't it?" I followed her finger directly to my house. I laughed, thinking she was joking. "Lady, that's my house." She stood up, hands on hips. "No, it's not. I own this land." "No," I said calmly but firmly, "you don't. I do. And if you don't leave, I'm going to call the police." I took one step forward, not aggressively, just enough to make it clear I wasn't backing down. That's when she exploded. "Get away from my son, you freaking pervert!" I froze. "What?" "You heard me. Get back." I backed up immediately, heart pounding. I don't know if she genuinely believed it or just wanted to cause a scene, but either way, I wasn't taking chances. I walked back up to my house, locked the door behind me, and called the police. 15 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. Officer D, someone I recognized from town events, stepped out. He walked over to where the woman, who we'll now call Karen, was still parked on the riverbank with her kid and waved me over. "What's going on here?" he asked. Karen jumped in first. "That man's harassing me and my child. He was trying to touch my son." Officer raised an eyebrow. "You're accusing him of what?" "He followed us down here, started threatening me, said he owned the property, which he doesn't." Officer glanced over at me with a silent, "Is this for real?" look. I just nodded, trying to stay calm. "Officer," I said, "that's my house, my property. I've got my house keys, my ID with the address, and I'm happy to show you my car and the title to the land. She's trespassing." Karen scoffed. "He probably stole the keys. He broke in." Officer turned to her. "Ma'am, if that's true, we'll get to the bottom of it, but you'll need to prove ownership if you're making that claim." "I don't need to prove anything," she snapped. "That house is mine." Officer looked back at me. "Mind showing me the keys?" I nodded and led the way up to my house with an officer, Karen, and her son trailing behind. I unlocked the front door, stepped inside, then walked back out and unlocked my car in the driveway. I handed Officer D my license, matching address and all. Karen's face was a storm cloud. "He stole them," she yelled. "He's squatting in my home." Officer turned toward her. "Ma'am, I verified his ID and ownership. He lives here. You're trespassing on private property, and you made a false accusation about a serious crime. I strongly suggest you leave, now." Karen gaped at him. "You're taking his side?" Her son, bless his heart, whispered, "Mom, let's just go." Officer gave her one last warning. "Next time you step foot on this property, it won't be a conversation." They left without another word. I stood on the porch and watched them shuffle back to their car and drive off. I've since added another private property trespassers will be prosecuted sign and a new security camera, just in case. Should have just pressed trespassing charges and asked if this would be considered filing a false report situation, since she lied the whole time about who lives where. I mean, probably not jail, but costing her a couple $100 would be fun. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.